Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Premiership Quarter. Today, I'm going to be doing my round one predictions for who beats who. It is round one of the AFL season on Thursday night between Carlton and Richmond, and I am officially back from my trip over the weekend, which I enjoyed, and I got burnt to an absolute crisp. So, if you are out in the sun in 38-degree weather for 2 days in a row on the beach, make sure you wear sunscreen. It does help. So this video, I'm going to be doing my predictions for this week's upcoming games. To start with, I'm going to be talking about Carlton and Richmond, obviously. The games last week, Carlton came back incredibly against Brisbane up at the Gabba. I was messaging a mate because I was able to check the scores when Carlton were down by like 10 goals or whatever it was. And I just sent like three messages of ha ha, ha ha, ha ha. And then he sent it back when they took the lead. And so I feel like I gave Carlton the win. So, Carlton fans, you can thank me. But they just really fought back. I didn't watch any of the games over the weekend. I didn't have much reception. So I'm just sort of talking about what I've heard from the games. They came back. Harry Mackay obviously kicked the game-winning goal after Cameron put Brisbane back in front at about 5 minutes, and he set shot he took did really well with it. Took his time, kept himself under control, and he didn't succumb to the pressure. So great confidence booster for Mackay early in the season, and hopefully he'll just build off the back of it. And for them to be able to win against Brisbane up there without Wiedering, without Walsh, and now Doherty also unfortunately getting injured, it's a bit unfortunate. And then Richmond obviously lost to Gold Coast by 39 points with Hardwick's new Gold Coast team. Didn't have Martin, didn't have Lynch, a couple of other players that weren't fully fit. And so there's not a lot really to take out of this game for Richmond. I'm not really sure how they played. Were they good? Were they not? I didn't watch it, as I said. But I think it's pretty clear that even without the best pieces in some of their best pieces in their team, Carlton are still great. And with Williams staying healthy, he'll be able to provide some of what Doherty provided. And then maybe like an Ashton Moyer could come in this week to replace him. So I'm going to go Carlton by about 28 points. Collingwood versus Sydney is the next game. Collingwood got outrun essentially by GWS. They just sort of couldn't get control of the game at any stage of the game, especially after about halfway through that second quarter. They would have patches of great play, but GWS were always able to respond. And them having a couple pieces down back that just weren't fully fit in Howe and Murphy not being there. So great for Charlie Dean to be able to play his first game after a couple of years out with foot injuries. So it's great for him, able to get through the game fit. But also their midfield and their rucks just weren't fully there. Obviously, Cox and Johnson were very quiet, but that's also due to GWS being a great defensive team. And then Sydney pulling off a really, really good win against Melbourne. I was able to catch parts of this game, but it was sort of in and out. And they just seemed to be able to be a lot more efficient and take their chances than what Melbourne were able to do. And for their midfield to stand up like it did, Isaac Heaney playing essentially full-time mid, it worked really well. It's just whether it'll happen again. And I think it's at the MCG, and I think Collingwood will bounce back. I don't see them losing 2 games in a row. So I'm going to go Collingwood by 17 points. The third game is going to be Essendon v Hawthorn. And I think with the injuries at Hawthorn at the moment, I just see being very little depth to cover the positions. A lot of it's relying on younger players, and that's tough. And then Essendon is still going to be pretty healthy. They're going to have at least 90 to 95% of their full list in their best 23. And I think a new season, they're going to want to start well like they did last year and make an impact. So I'm going to go Essendon by 20 points, just an even 20 points. And then this one, it's one of the more obvious ones. Sure, North Ball, great, but even with North's defensive issues, and in my opinion, the weak point of GWS's forward line. The fact that Cadman showed some great signs against Collingwood, Hogan and Callum Brown kicking 5 and 4 goals. It's great. Brent Daniel, sorry, also being kicking 4 goals. I think their attacking range now has really improved, and I think they'll get the job done by about 6 goals. Now, this one's a very interesting game because Geelong are obviously going to want to bounce back from how poor they were last year. Dealt with a lot of injuries, weren't at their best really at all. And then St Kilda are going to want to prove to the AFL and the media that they weren't just a one season fluke under Ross Lyon, and that his game plan and the new changes to their team will be able to have an impact in the 2024 AFL season. So it's tough. I think Geelong will want to prove something, like I said, but I just think St Kilda defensively are really solid. They showed last year that Jeremy Cameron is not always able to perform under Callum Wilkie's pockets. He is probably the best matchup for Cameron in the competition, and I just think that St Kilda will be able to get the job done by just over 2 goals. Gold Coast versus Adelaide. Gold Coast showed some great signs against Richmond in the opening round. Good bit of play in the first half to get that lead, and they never really looked back. Richmond were able to trim the lead, but they were never really challenging to win the game. And Ben King, great performance. Matt Real, obviously, with the 20 clearances. Only second time that's ever happened in history. So I think they're really going to build off the back of it. It's also their home game, although Adelaide do also struggle travelling, at least from last season, not necessarily always performing to their best. And so I see Gold Coast continuing to improve and getting the job done by about 5 points. I think it's a really close game because Adelaide are also such a great attacking side. And if their midfield do get on top, which could happen with someone like Dawson, Rory Laird, potentially having great games in their first game, I think it'll be a really, really good game, and honestly could be game of the round for round one. Melbourne versus Western Bulldogs. Melbourne were just same issues really as last year. They weren't able to find any connection inside the forward 50. The three main tools of Van Rooyen, Shaki, and Frisch just didn't really work well together. Frisch is a great talent. He can finish top 10 in the Coleman in any year. He showed that in 2021, but he's more of the third tool. Van Rooyen's a great centerpiece for the future, but he just needs to be able to impact games now, which is really tough for him because for an experienced side around him, and for him to carry that load of the forward line really is the main key big-bodied forward. It's tough and it's asking a lot of him. And then Josh Shaki simply isn't a good enough AFL footballer for a contending team to have playing. So I just think they're going to need to find someone, whether it's moving Tom McDonald back there, whether it's just simply waiting for Harrison Petty. But it's a real issue for them. Max Gawn played pretty well as the sole ruck. And then they just need to be a bit more decisive with their kicking inside 50, understanding leading patterns. A lot of it was just stagnant movement, but also something that I noticed in the parts that I watched was marking the ball on your chest compared to out in front. I think Melbourne need to work on that. Their forwards really, really struggle with it, and so did Sydney. It's a lot of things with the AFL players now where they just don't understand taking the ball in front is much more difficult for a defender to stop. And then the Western Bulldogs, I think it's a pretty even team. Bulldogs are going to be interesting with their tools, how they line up, whether they go super tall or whether they go smaller, and what their defensive line is also going to look like, whether Caulfield plays, whether it's going to be Buku Karmas potentially, Sam Darcy might play there. It's going to be quite interesting. But I think I've got the Bulldogs slightly winning. I think they're going to want to prove something to start the season and really want to get on a roll. So I think I've got the Bulldogs winning by about 10 points. Is there much to say about this? I mean, sure, West Coast might be a bit healthy to start the season, but it's not really going to change too much. So I'm going to go about 7 goals. And then Fremantle versus Brisbane. I'm actually kind of leaning towards it being a better game than what a lot of people think. Obviously, no Sean Darcy, but Luke Jackson showed his best when he was by himself last year. And I just think that maybe with a bit of weakness now from Brisbane being able to transition the ball from half back, obviously no Coleman, unfortunately tore his ACL, so he'll be out for the year. And whether Darcy Walmart can take that load by himself, I'm not sure if Connor McKenna's fully healthy or not, but it's going to be a lot for him and it's going to be really tough. So I think it's going to be a close game, but I'm just going to go with the Brisbane Smalls to be able to get the job done, and then midfield to really work overtime and get through and go by about 10 points as well. So that's my round one predictions. If you like the video, please hit the like button. It'll really help with my video in the YouTube algorithm. If you enjoy this type of content, there's going to be a lot more, and subscribe to the channel. Leave your thoughts on who might win in the comments below, and thanks for watching.